let's chat. I tell you all these numbers, and these are all national in nature. And you know what national numbers are good for when it comes to real estate? Guys that are on radio or on TV, because they don't mean a whole heck of a lot when you get to the street. Now, Danny Murphy is with us, Danny and Associates. He knows the numbers on the street.
I'm a street guy.
You're a street man.
I'm a street guy.
So are you seeing properties moving on the street, or is there activity? Last week I was talking to some agents, and their comments to me were the open houses that used to have 3 or 4 or 5 parties are now having 20, 30, 40 parties. How's that? How are you seeing it?
Yeah, since the beginning of the year, we've seen a lot of activity. Open houses have been really busy. A lot of people coming through, a lot of interest. I think it's driven by the rates had been down for the last 8 or 9 weeks. And so I think the consumers are, the demand's there. The supply isn't there, right? We're at record low supply here locally and probably even across the country.
Sure.
So, people are out when the rates are down. They're out wanting to make purchases and lock in those rates. And we're seeing a lot of activity. I think it's probably going to slow a little bit if the rates keep creeping up. But we've had really good activity since the beginning of the year.
So what area are you in mostly, Danny?
So we're Orange County,
coastal
okay. Orange County, but also
that's a really tough place to be.
It's a good place
coastal
to be.
Orange County.
We like it. They're not building any more land.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. No more beachfront properties.
No more beachfront properties. So it is a good place to be, and people like to be there. And so, especially when you look at golf tournaments in February and the sun was out some of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something, the weather worked out pretty well for the golf tournaments on the West Coast swing.
It did. The West Coast swing, I think, was good. If they waited a week or two later, it'd be raining like it was today.
Yeah, it wouldn't. They wouldn't have been able to get this last weekend in for sure.
Nope.
So just because we can, and because I do like to bring this down to a local area, Newport Beach, California, I've got the numbers as of February 27th. I think that's fairly current. So Newport Beach has a whopping 36 houses, single-family residences for sale in 92660.
Sounds about right.
Not a lot there. And 33% of the properties have taken a price decrease. So that means 12. You got to bring that down, right? I mean, it's just not a lot of inventory.
Well, and I think a lot of times, the sellers almost don't get the memo, right? They're right. Thinking it's a year and a half ago when everything was selling and, multiple offers and 10% over list price. And so unless you're really having a good conversation with the sellers, there are a lot of properties that are somewhat overpriced. And so they're taking price reductions. But we're still seeing good values. We're still seeing good demand.
So you're saying taking price reductions. Do you see... and I talk about this all the time. A price reduction doesn't mean the property value is going down.
Right.
It just means that
it's priced too high.
Yeah, the buyers didn't see the same value that a seller did.
Yeah, and I think that I think the sellers go, hey, my neighbor sold last year for X, and I'm gonna price my place for X plus a couple percent. And we're just
like
not
20% like it was a couple years ago.
Right. We're not seeing that kind of horsepower out there any longer. People are, the buyers are being much more judicious about looking. They're doing their due diligence. They're taking time. So a year and a half ago, they would look at the house and, felt like they had to make an offer along with their firstborn.
Sure.
Now they're taking a couple of weeks. Days on market are extended out, and it's more of a normal market.
So I like that term, normal market, as opposed to what it was, because it really wasn't normal in 21, 22.
No, it wasn't.
So do you think prices are going to go down, or what do you think? What are your forecasting?
So, I believe that, we peaked last April. You could see that in the numbers in terms of valuations. And I think in the markets that we work, we've seen probably a 5 to 7% decrease in prices, which is super healthy, right? You look at the stock market and what that's done in the last year, and it's been pretty brutal, right? So to have home values come off the peak a little bit was only natural and was likely to happen. I feel like we've stabilized. I think the next 12 months will probably be kind of bouncing around the values we're at now. I don't see a lot of appreciation. I don't see an impetus for a lot of appreciation in the next 6 to 12 months. But I do think that you look ahead to like 2024, inflation gets under control, Fed starts reeling back rates. I think that we could be off to the races a little bit again. And so I think this is a time right now where it's great for buyers to be out there. They can take a little more time to find properties. They can negotiate terms a little bit better. And so if I were a buyer, I'm telling buyers right now, you're buying the home, not the loan, right?
Okay.
And so I think that it's like, negotiate the terms, get a good value, get a home that you want. And then in probably the next 2 years, I bet most people that are getting loans now are going to be refinancing those loans.
Now, so we know that the new home builders are doing a lot of concessions for the buyer. because they want to keep the value up. So they'll look at it and they say, okay, well, we can keep the value up by giving it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that on the resale level?
Absolutely. I think buyers are, sometimes it's hard to work with buyers, right? In the last 2 years, it's been tougher because not a lot of inventory, really competitive. Today, though, it's great working with buyers because, you can get out there and really add value for them as an agent, but also there's a lot of negotiating taking place on terms and price. We're able to kind of shift it, like I said, back to more of a normal market where, you got a seller that really wants to find a good buyer, and the buyers are being real selective in what they pick and what they pay for it.
Buyers doing a little more homework right now?
I feel like they've always been pretty informed the last, 10 years, right? With a
They had
lot
to
of
be so
information.
spontaneous the last couple of years, right?
They have been, yeah.
You walked into a property, and if it was somewhat acceptable, you felt like you had to put an offer in because there's going to be 25 other people putting offers in, and you're probably going to have to put in 20 offers to get something.
Well, I read something just recently. It said something like, 47% of buyers that have purchased homes in the last 2 years feel like they may have made the wrong purchase, right? The house wasn't optimal for them, and they did it because they felt like they had to make the offer and get it. And if they got their offer accepted, they better follow through with it and buy the house, right? And so now I do think that buyers are being a lot more selective and taking their time. And if it's not the right house, even though there's not a lot of inventory, I think they feel comfortable moving on to another place. And so, you better market the house right. You better price it right. It better look good, make the house look good. It's kind of like washing the car before you try and sell it. Because the buyers are being a lot more selective right now.
Yeah, they really have the opportunity. They have a little bit of time that, I looked at, again, go back to Newport Beach, and you're looking at the median days on market, or average days on market is 114. I don't know that that's going to be typical. 114 sounds to me, just from a gut, sounds a little bit long, but average days on the market, of course, Anaheim Hills, I'm looking at 95 is the average days on the market as of today's report. Temecula, you guys out there in Temecula, we've had some folks on there. Your average days are 101. So it's
more of a balanced market, right? I think anything under 120 days is considered a balanced market. So, we were down, below 30 days from start to finish, and that was considered an extremely hot seller's market.
Right.
Today, 70 to 90 days is normal, and that's kind of a balanced market where I think you better, like I said, sellers better price it right. You better market it right. And then I think the buyers are going to take some time. They're going to have some negotiation room. They're doing their due diligence, and and there's going to be some terms that have to be agreed to by both parties. And I think that's a good place to be for all of us. I think that it's a healthier market. I think it allows us to add value once again in a real material manner as an agent, right? So you have to have a good listing agent involved, and your buyer's agent needs to be good and at their craft as well.
Wow, and people that really know what they're doing.
Imagine that.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to continue our conversation this morning. Danny Murphy, Danny and Associates. I see your emails, danny@thesocallife.com. Is that a website also?
It is.
Awesome. So I'm pretty quick at that, aren't I?
You're good. Connecting all the dots.
Every once in a while, I do get some people that come in and they've got the domain name to get their emails, but they never set up a website for it. And I'm going, why? Why don't you? But
www.thesocallife.com.
www.thesocallife.com. Cool. So that's where you can find Danny. You can meet Danny right there. But before the break, Danny, I was talking, you and I were chatting about that we're into a more normalized market, 21, 22. Those really, 20 and 21 weren't normal. 22 wasn't, in just the opposite direction, right? We've never seen our interest rates double in 1 year. So that was kind of different. Tell me a little bit, how do you educate the people you're working with to have some realistic expectations?
Yeah, I think coming off of, with COVID and the way the market was for a couple of years there, really for 2.5 years, people think that interest rates are always going to be sub 3%. Sellers have expectations that homes are going to sell like they did 2 years ago. So I think it's really important for us to help people see the big picture, right? I think that real estate it's a long-term investment. We tell people it's not timing the market, it's time in the market, right? And so I've never sat down.
I heard that in the brokerage world as well.
Well, you've probably heard it once or twice, right? And we always say, I've got a great chart that goes back to 1960, kind of like what you're talking about, where year 10 and it shows Orange County home values. And year 10 has always been higher than year 1, no matter how you slice and dice that 10-year increment, even with the Great Recession at the peak before it imploded. And so it's a great investment. So we try to educate our clients that long-term investing in real estate, also because of the power of leverage, like you said, you don't buy $1 million house and put $1 million down. You buy $1 million house and maybe put $100,000 or $200,000 down. You get that even at 5 or 6% interest, but you're getting appreciation on the entire $1 million asset, right? And so even though you're only putting $100,000 down, your appreciation is on the $1 million asset. So we really try to educate folks to understand that it's a long-term thing. And if, sometimes people are trying to flip properties, and that's a different investment opportunity. It's a different investment analysis.
Nothing
right?
wrong with it. It's just different.
It's different. So for the typical buyer or seller, it's really about buying something that's going to be a home for them. It's a place for them to raise children and families. It's a place to grow old, hopefully together, and be, have the beauty and safety of a home and a home ownership. And so we really try to educate them on the long-term benefits of being in the local real estate market.
Do you see this as are we going back to, we hear a lot about recession, and I do a show every month. It's called The Millennial and the Old Man. And I'm obviously not the millennial, but the millennials, they only know one recession. They've only lived through one, which was, 2020, they don't count. That was just a whole different world.
Technical adjustment.
Yeah. But they remember mom and dad struggling in 2008. Are we going back to that again, do you think?
I definitely don't. I think and we say that because there's real data that doesn't support us going back to that, right? We're the money that's going out there. The Great Recession was a real estate fueled recession where we were giving out money to anybody and everybody. We shouldn't have been doing it. Fog and mirror,
you're qualified.
Fog and mirror, you're getting the money, right? And so, the whole system imploded and almost took down, all the other financial areas around that. And so now, lending standards, as are really difficult. You have to really qualify for the loan. You have to
be able to repay it.
You have to
what a surprise.
Show that you have the assets and the income and all that, and not too much debt and everything. And so there's that part of it. Then you've got the part where we don't have a glut of inventory. We've got a good jobs market. So I think that across, economically, we had 11 million jobs open, this last report. And so people are employed. At least locally here, you've got people that have good jobs. So I think the financial dynamics are very different now, where people, are qualifying for the loans. They're buying homes that they can afford. The distress rates across Orange County, even across the country, are extremely low. So I have people saying, hey, are the REOs coming back and short sales? No, because, the average owner in Orange County has 40-50% equity in their home. Right. So no one's walking away from 50% equity in their house.
Yeah. You're not going to walk away from, you have a median home price of $1 million and change. You're not going to walk away. So it was $1,032,000
or $500,000 of equity.
I got $400,000. I think I'll just let it go.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk away. So
I'll take it.
The dynamics around the market, the fundamentals are completely different than what they were during the Great Recession. So no, I don't think we're going back to that. I think that we're going through an adjustment period where we've got to get inflation under control. Rates are the way that the Fed does that. That's their tool in their tool chest. I think that as you look ahead, once we get past sort of this inflation issue that we have, I think we're back to a continued healthy market.
Good stuff. And just to clarify, because Danny's completely right that the Fed does use these interest rates, but a lot of times when we get closer to the Fed accomplishing their mission, the home loan rates actually will start going the opposite of what the Federal Reserve is doing. So as the Fed starts getting to where they're right now, they're trying to get inflation under control. As we see inflation coming under control, we should start seeing home loan rates drop as well. Continue our conversation. Danny Murphy is with us. We're chatting about real estate. Before the break, Danny made a comment that I want him to dig into a little bit earlier. There's not a glut in inventory. Well, the question becomes, we hear interest rates are increasing and the media says that real estate isn't selling. Why is there no glut?
Well, I think the biggest reason is you've got so many people that have interest rates on their mortgages now, 3%. I think the numbers are like 40% of people have interest rates below 3% on a mortgage rate, 30-year mortgage rate. And, 70% of people have rates that are below 4%, right? So it's kind of like the golden handcuffs is what, they're getting called.
Sure.
And so I think unless you have to move, because of death or divorce, or you've been you have to move and relocation, things like that. Bigger family, smaller family. People just aren't putting their homes on the market, and so we're not seeing the typical flows of listings and people buying and selling, because if they don't have to leave and take on a mortgage rate, like you said, we've never seen mortgage rates double in a 12-month period of time like we did last year. And so if you don't have to go and get a 6.5% mortgage rate right now, people are staying put.
So do you think it's going to ever loosen up?
Absolutely. I think that I think we'll have our seasonal loosening up, which is starting now. And I think we'll see, the typical inventory starts coming online and does so until August, right? July, August, summer months. But I think that, there's always a certain level, and I don't know what exactly that number is, but there's always a certain amount of people that have to buy and sell because of death and divorce. And
one of your colleagues from First Team came on here the other
Ds.
day and educated me on the 6 Ds.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the 6 Ds are the reasons why there'll always be a certain level of buying and selling and homes that come on the market, because people have death and divorce, and the families.
We like the other side of it, though. You go death and divorce, and
so we got the other ones are better too.
I think the diamonds, diapers, diplomas, death, divorce, and default.
There's a 6th one, the default, and obviously default's not a big one for us right now. Right. But yeah, the diamonds and diapers, all those things are causing a certain level of. There's always going to be a certain level of inventory, but I think that I think it really starts to loosen up as we look ahead into 24. I think when the rates start to, as the Fed starts to message that they've done their work in terms of getting inflation under control, and this as well, and they start to message that they don't have to continue raising rates and even start to lower rates, and they may not come until early 24 or late 23. I think as soon as that starts happening, the mortgage rates will start to respond to that. We'll see them start to pull back. And then I think there'll be a lot of pent up supply and demand, right? I think there'll be a lot of would-be sellers that want to move on with their lives, and they haven't had to move in 23, but now they want to buy that smaller house or the bigger house, or move to a different state and retire into a different home. And so I think that's when we really start to see things accelerate. But I think we got to kind of trudge through 23 to get there first.
So here's the question: is do you think that those people are going to sell, or are they going to pull equity out through other investment vehicles? I mean, one of our investors just came out with something that's new to me, and I've been doing this for 100 years. A second mortgage, reverse second mortgage. So you have that 3% first or 2.5% first, but I want to get some of that equity out. If I'm old enough, I can get a reverse mortgage. Yes, I'm old enough. You can take a reverse second, not have a payment on it, but I can go and buy another piece of property, but at least I can tap into that equity. Do you think people will try and find ways of tapping into equity because they don't want to give up that low cost first?
Personally, I think that's those options have always kind of been out there. There's always been investment vehicles where people can pull in to tap into equity. I think on a big scale, I find that a lot of people don't know about those different opportunities investment wise. And so unless the agent community or the lending community is doing a really big push and really good at articulating those different options, I think you'll always have a certain number of takers that want to tap into their equity, don't sell the property, maybe keep it for financial reasons, but also want to move on and buy something else. I don't see that being a big portion of the market. And I could be totally wrong. That's just my personal opinion, because I think that a lot of the typical consumer that's buying and selling homes, they start to think that that's risky, or they think that that's
good point.
They think that that's sort of the stuff that got us in trouble during the Great Recession, even though those are really good investment vehicles. I think you have to have a really savvy buyer seller to want to take advantage of something like that. And I think that the delivery of that message has to be really it has to be really strong and compelling, and the person delivering it has to really know what they're talking about.
So based on what you're saying, then 24 might be another one of those really challenging times, because the sellers were getting a pent up seller demand. And obviously those sellers, for the most part, want to have a roof over their head. Some of them might want to tent
somewhere,
right? Yeah. So they've got to buy something. So that's going to cause demand. Plus, we've got that 1.9 million household formations is causing demand. So that could really be a big push if you get a lot of demand and not a lot of supply, that means prices are going to skyrocket again.
That's why I think this year, again, if you're a buyer out there looking to do something, I think 2023 is the time to do it. I know the rates are higher than they were a year and a half ago, and people don't like that. But if you accept the notion that you're buying the home and not the loan, and that rates will probably come back down to somewhere in the 4s in the next year or two, and that you'll refinance, right now is the time to be buying, because you're not competing against 15 different offers. There is some inventory, not a lot, but I think people can have some negotiating terms as a buyer. And then I believe that, because I do think that in 24, we'll see more volume, we'll see more inventory, we'll see more transactions take place across our industry in real estate. But I think that you're going to see the demand return in a way that does start to put maybe materially upward pressure on prices. I don't think we're seeing that upward pressure on prices right now. And I don't think we're going to see that for the next 6 to 9 months, is just my personal prediction, just based on rates and the noise that's out there in the media. But I think once you kind of get past this period that we're in now, I think you're going to see a lot of potential price appreciation pressure.
So let's take a look at some numbers, because I am a numbers guy.
Love it.
Right. So Danny's a realtor. Most realtors are great in, not most, the successful realtors are great in sales, and they're great in educating the consumer on the property. Most of them don't focus on numbers. Yeah. Right.
I've got an MBA in finance, so I love the numbers too.
Right.
But yeah, I think most is a fair statement. Yeah.
Okay. So what Danny was just saying, let's say you've got $1 million property and you got a $750,000 loan. If you've got a 6.5% interest rate, you're paying about $4,700 principal and interest. If you've got a 5% interest rate, you're paying $4,026, roughly $700 difference.
Yeah.
Over a 12-month period, that's going to cost you $8,400. It's not a huge, $8,400 is a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, it's not a massive, because you can change, so you're spending $8,400 to get into the market right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah. And
get the property you want. And that's going to go up 5% this year in Orange County. Home price expectation survey says 2.4, but whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just say, because it's easy, 5%. That's $37,500. You're going to spend $8,400 extra to get it. How many times do you want to spend $8,400 to get $37,500?
Every time.
Right?
Yeah.
As often as I can do it.
As often as I can do it.
Right? Until I run out of checks.
Yep.
And I'll buy more.
Yep.
Right? It's pretty simple. So what Danny's saying makes, from a numbers standpoint. Now, I know you need a house. You need some place to live. And I don't get involved in that part of it because I don't understand it. I got a real estate license. I'm not qualified to use it. Right? That's why you go to the professionals. But just from the numbers standpoint, it makes total sense.
Yeah, I think that, I think that, especially too, people need a place to live, like you said. And I think that, people want to own a home. And the other side of this equation too, that's important that we haven't talked about, is rents. Rents are through the roof. We don't do a lot of rental work with people, but we do from time to time. And I'm always shocked, including last week when we put someone in a rental, and how much someone's paying for, a 4-bedroom home, in this case in Huntington Beach. And, rents are exactly those same numbers that you're paying on a mortgage. So you got to come up with the down payment. That can be a stretch, but lenders, they have ways to help with programs, and you can do lower down payment loans, and so there's ways to get into the properties with the loan, and because the mortgage is like a rent. It's like a rent payment.
Take a look at this. I just pulled this up while you're talking about that. Median rent for Newport Beach, I just had that one on my screen, $6,825.
Right?
Median rent.
And you don't get any tax benefit from that. You don't get any appreciation on the market, which we know.
Your landlord says thank you.
They thank you every time they get that check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want more information on anything we're chatting about, if you want to meet Danny Murphy, give me a call at 800-306-1990.